Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today, I get to talk to a hero of mine. He's a hero because I've only heard about him for the last 2 decades from my nephew and our mutual friend, Brady Sadler. Over the years, Brady talked about Taylor Scott as if he is a superhero. And I've always wanted to meet him. And every once in a while, I see him at a function or something where we're all out together, but I've never had a chance to have a really deep conversation with him. Now, Taylor is all grown up. We're just talking about the fact that he's 40. So all these people from my nephew's past have these incredible careers, and now they're the people that I want to interview and talk about on this podcast. So Taylor wrote a book called Ball Games to Boardrooms, and you can really take from that the synergies between business and sports. He's also working on a book called Lead with Hospitality. He is a speaker, he's an author, he's a trainer, he's director of communications and training at S what is the company name? I can't actually make it out without my reading glasses because
SPI.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. But the cool thing about you is that you were one of the youngest guys to get an internship at Disney. Everybody else was younger than you, and you were there when you were 18, before you were even in college. And you steeped yourself in the hospitality industry, scrubbing toilets, turning down beds. You've done every job to working at high-end hotels, leading multi-million-dollar campaigns and reward campaigns for the Wynn and Encore and Gaylord and all those kinds of things. So everything from the bottom up in hospitality. And now your passion is leadership. So you're marrying the two of those, right?
That is a true story.
That is a true story, right? So like I come from the high-tech industry, and I come from the hustle and the grind of the startup world, right? So everything I talk about with leadership and resiliency and everything that I teach comes from my background there. You come from hospitality, which just kind of intrigues me. So give me the story of Taylor Scott and how this all came about.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Gaylord because coming out of our Disney internship season, if you will, Brady and I and several of our friends, we interned at Walt Disney World every summer while we were in college. And then I was fortunate enough in the summer after after graduation, I was a management intern at one of the Disney hotels. But as luck would have it, 9/11 hit while my age group, was all just coming out of college. So unfortunately, Disney could not status me full-time after my management internship was over. But luckily for me, Gaylord Palms Resort and Convention Center was opening up in Orlando right around that season. So the reason I say that story is because I was sitting there in the pre-open, so I was on the opening team of Gaylord Palms as a housekeeping manager. So here I am, 22 years old. I'm fired up. Sad that I didn't get to stay at Disney, but stoked that I landed a full-time job at this amazing hotel opening.
And 22 years old, and you're the housekeeping manager. That's not it. I'm sorry?
I was one of 11. We had 11 of us that took care of the 1,406 rooms that Gaylord Palms had. And yeah, I was the youngest one of them.
That's a responsibility. There's so many moving parts and so many things that you need to keep track of, so that you have to have a presence of mind. So just because you're like this, you're not the manager of the Holiday Inn, and turning down maybe 100 rooms. You have a substantial responsibility, and you have to have the presence of mind and some leadership skills already at 22.
It's true. And I didn't have everything figured out, but I just remember being so excited about being there and like being on the team. So here's what happened. Is the general manager at the time, his name was John Caparella, really well known in hospitality. He ended up years later being the president of Venetian and Palazzo in Las Vegas. But anyway, he brought in a guest speaker to all of us on the pre-opening team. You're familiar with the Gaylord hotels, that they all have the big atriums?
Yes.
So I'm sitting there, and the atrium was in the background, and this guest speaker is inspiring all of us on the opening team. He said, "Friends, you have just embarked, or you've been in the hospitality industry." And he told us, he said, the essence of hospitality is the ability to make people feel welcome, comfortable, and important. And so then the next 15 years happened. So I'm fired up. We opened the hotel, and it was great. I did a couple things at Gaylord, went back to Disney, grew a little bit, ended up leaving and going to grad school, after which I landed in Vegas. And then randomly now, as the story goes, I'm in this consulting role with a company based out of Las Vegas again. But I had this realization last summer. And I look back over my entire career working these different lines of business and resorts and all around the hospitality industry, whether it be operations or casino marketing or sales and marketing. And I thought to myself, the same thing that guy told us in February of 2002 about what makes great hospitality is also what makes great leaders great. And it's the ability to make people, your team, feel welcome, comfortable, and important. So I had this idea, and I sat down 2 summers ago, a year and a half ago, and there's got to be something to this. So the more research that I did, the more human behavior and human nature stuff I found that really rings true. So I'm in the 4th quarter, if you will. I'm in the 9th inning of putting this and packaging this book together. And I'm also creating leadership workshop content around it, because there's really something there. That great leaders are great, not because of their leadershipness, but because of their humanness. So that's really the big thing I've learned over this whole entire journey of working in the hospitality industry. And now I just want to give that back. And I want to go to these up and comers that were like Brady and me and all of our friends in 2001 and 2002, coming out of college and starting in our leadership careers. I want to help give them the answers to the tests.
So so the question I had, you grew up in a small town, very much, your community was your church, sports, and your parents, from what I gleaned, were very, community was really important.
Absolutely.
And the question I always ask any expert is, why do you care? Like, why did this spark you when you saw this correlation between hospitality and what a good leader is and what a good leadership in an organization is? Why do you care?
Yeah, it does go back to my hometown and how I grew up. And you're right. We grew up where it's like your quintessential Southern small town where it's like kind of like a varsity blues thing, faith, family, and football. Well, in Kentucky, it's basketball. So it gets rooted in that, our Christian values, and then growing up an athlete. But then when you grow up and you get out in the real world, as you know, and as everybody, all of your listeners know, things don't always go as planned. And what I realized a few years ago is that every single person needs encouragement at one point or another. And so for some reason, I had to look at myself and go, you know what? I wanted to be a general manager of a big time hotel. I wanted to be a president of one of the Vegas hotels. Well, that didn't happen. And then I wanted to be, I wanted to go back to the Walt Disney Company, and I wanted to grow and become like one of the executives that I looked up to. And that didn't happen either. And so I just kind of sat down and I said, you know what? There are people out there, and it really hurt. It hurts when you don't reach your dreams, and it feels like you're less than.
So we're going to bookmark this, because I really want to, if you don't mind, I really want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because you are one of the most charismatic, intelligent, natural leaders. You work harder than anybody else around you, and you tossing off all these things as if they didn't work out. Right? You're only 40 years old, right? Can you fix that for me? Because why didn't they work out, if you're being honest?
I'm being honest, and it leads into why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, which is giving back. And I partnered up with somebody who I look up to, who's about 8 years older than me. He grew up through the Ritz-Carlton Company, did really well in hospitality. So we speak the same language. We're passionate about the same things. But he started a company as a consultant and a training company. And so the reasons those things didn't work out for me is a few things. I didn't know what I didn't know in a lot of cases. The biggest thing I've learned in the last 5 years is it really comes down to emotional intelligence. So there's IQ and there's EQ. And we've all read all the books, and if you haven't, well, there's IQ and there's EQ. IQ you have, and I have when we're 7 years old. It doesn't change over time. Your IQ is 7 or 8 years old, same IQ you have when you're 40. Emotional intelligence, EQ, it's different because you can actually get better at the emotional intelligence pieces with practice and with intentional thought. So what I've learned is that IQ will get you the job, and EQ will either make you a star or it will cost you your job. So it's just the ability to be able to process things and to know, have the self-awareness to know what makes you great and to know your lane, have the self-management to be able to manage your own emotions and not freak out and say things you don't mean, and the toothpaste gets out of the tube, hard to get it back in. Most times it's too late. And then social awareness, being able to be aware of who's around you, what's around you in different situations, call for different things that you need to say and how you say them. And then finally, it's the relationship management piece. So I've learned that in the last year, diving into all of Daniel Goleman's stuff and Travis Bradberry's stuff about emotional intelligence. So for me now, that's why I didn't make it, right? That's why I didn't make, in my mind, I didn't know what I didn't know about those things when I was 28, 29, 30, and 31. And so what I'm doing now is I'm just pouring myself into 28, 29, 30, 31-year-olds and whoever else that wants to grow. And I want to help them realize their dreams and get to where they want to go, but mostly to be able to be the best that they can be, which I think is really what leadership is all about, is the ability to get people to become the best versions of themselves.
So let me see if I understood this correctly. So in other words, you just weren't the right material at the time with the right emotional, we'll use the word emotional intelligence, but you weren't playing the game properly in order to get the promotions going where you needed to go. So you went someplace else before you learned those things.
That's right. And it was a couple humbling experiences. I mean, the reason why I like you and your podcast and people like Brady, and Brady tells me, hey, you should be on Mark's podcast, and I'm going to do it because I believe in Brady and I believe in you, and I've talked off the show a couple of times, and it's about being human. And if we're all honest with ourselves, we can all point to some times when we came up short and we didn't make it and we made mistakes. We said things we didn't mean. So yeah, absolutely. Like that's the realness of this. And I think that's really what makes great leaders great, is the ability to be human as opposed to come across superhuman.
So now fast forward, what you're doing is you're helping these people, these young men and women, learn what you didn't learn that cost you some of what you thought were your dreams.
Yeah, in large part, yes. And then the more I learn about this business, see the problem I had for like 8 or 9 years when I was still in these roles that you talk about, whether I was, opening a hotel in Vegas or going back to Disney over here at Disneyland, is I always had one foot in this space. The inspiration, the encouragement, the teaching and coaching. And so I would do either, whether it would be doing a blog on my own time, or I would figure out ways to do some speaking as a side hustle just because I was passionate about it. But what I'm learning now is, hey, there's a way that you can make a living doing what you're passionate about. And so the more I'm working with the partners that I have now, and I'm realizing the business side of it, the business model. So what you find is there's so many companies and there's so many entities out there, whether it be in the hospitality industry or healthcare or what have you, that they need help with this piece. They need help with the leadership development programs. The big companies will have their own learning and development division, but you'd be surprised of the resources that they don't have or the content that they're still struggling to find. And that's what I've hopefully found as my niche here. And it took a few years, a couple humbling experiences where things ended and I didn't, not the way that I wanted them to end, and a couple of different career stops along the way. But just through prayer and getting real with myself, having a good support system with my buddies and my family, just was like, and Brady was one of them. He was just like, you have to do this now. Like all signs keep pointing to this. This might be what you're called to do.
Right. So the reframe, I'm quite a bit older than you, so I have a little bit more perspective. And my experience is when those doors don't happen for you, when life starts nudging you in a different direction, it's all working perfectly. If you had gotten those promotions, we don't know that that's would have made you happy. Would it, like, so for me, I got disciplined for sending out inspirational emails, Monday motivation emails at a startup I was working at. And there was the mark cease and desist. I'm like, what do you mean cease? I'm putting out good stuff here. They're like, stop it. Just stop it. But, of course, and that was a precursor to where I really needed to be, what I should be doing with my life, because that's my dharma. That's who I am. That's the water this fish swims in. That's who you are, right? So the life is nudging you over in this direction. Those humbling experiences are nothing but fertilizer for the rocket that you're flying right now.
That's a great point. And my wife reminded me as recently as this past week. Like, for example, I wanted it to work out at Disney. Like, I'm passionate about the company and the brand and grew up with it. And so I always saw myself as being a part of Disney. And we went to Disneyland last week, for the first time in a couple of years that I went there with my wife. And it was bittersweet being back there, because even as an 18 and 19 and 20 and 22 and 24, in my 20s, all of our buddies and we all are as passionate about the brand of Disney as we are about the business side and the marketing genius of it and the experience curation that they do there. That's what's inspired us all these years. Right. So it was bittersweet. My wife just looked at me and she's like, yeah, but if you were still there, it would be suppressing all of this you have been able to do in the last 18 months and what you're going to do with Lead with Hospitality and whatever else comes next. So that's so true.
So, so one of the things I know about you is that you put in the work, right? So I've heard you described as one of the most incredible natural leaders anybody's ever met. And
those are big words. You're making me blush here.
Right. So, but what we both know about that is you can be an incredibly natural and gifted leader. And then that belies the hard work that you put in to make it look so natural and so gifted, right? So what kind of work did you put into actually learning your craft that you bring to the world?
It was a combination of listening and doing. I just remember one time my dad told me, I think it was maybe the first time that I moved to Vegas. I was 28, coming right out of grad school, and I was in a director role at Wynn Las Vegas. And it was a time when it was tough because we had to run the operations at Wynn Las Vegas. At the same time, we were opening, it was actually 10 years ago right now, we were opening Encore Las Vegas, actually 11 years ago. And my dad reminded me, he's like, just because I got so overwhelmed. I mean, all of a sudden I was leading like 70 people, 6 of which were salaried leaders, everybody else frontline. And I was in a role that had to work with all these other departments. And I got really overwhelmed. And my dad was like, just remember the reason they put you in there. He reminded me of all these reasons. And one of them was you just listen really well. And he was right, as usual. Father knows best. And, if ever I found myself in the same space as a senior leader, whether it be a director or a VP, especially the general manager types, in my department or any other department, I just always remember just listening and watching them. Like, I used to watch and observe Disney executives, almost creepy.
Why?
Like, I just wanted to know what they knew, and I wanted to know how they got there, and I wanted to just figure out what that might look like for me. So one is just listening to everything around you. The other one is you got to get out there and do it and try things. And you've probably gone through that. We've all gone through that. And in the last 18 months or so, going from dipping my toe into entrepreneurship to jumping in the deep end, and then having to swim back to the shallow end to get some grounding. I found that things like this, the more you do, the more you learn. And you learn about yourself, and you learn what will work and what won't work. I mean, we all watch Gary Vee. He's been saying to us for years, the market will tell you if it's good or not. The market will tell you. So it's sometimes easy to second guess and you're so confident one minute. Brady and I talk about this all the time. You're so confident one minute, and you're like, Lead with Hospitality is going to crush. Like, it's got a hook. People want in, and then like a day later, I'll be like, I don't know if it's got enough oomph, and I'm not really sure if people are really going to buy in the way that I want them to. But if you do it, if you then I'll put out a blog post, Or I'll put out a little meme that I created sitting, and like a bunch of people will be like, when's the book coming out? Keep doing what you're doing. And you get this encouragement. So that's it.
I want to get really real on this conversation. All right. So you and I do basically the same thing in the world, different flavors, but generally you and I are committed to helping other people break through whatever holds them back, break through, be everything that they can possibly be, and also find some satisfaction and centeredness along the way. Right. And when I hear you speaking, I hear myself. And I hear the frustration I have in listening to you is the frustration that the people around me have around me, right? Is when we switch from the thing that we were a rock star at to something new, especially entrepreneurship and the ups and downs. We're not used to, we're not used to going and being beginners again. So we ride the ups and downs of the feedback that the market is giving us. See, I don't agree with Gary Vaynerchuk. I agree with Gary Vaynerchuk when you're selling shit on Facebook ads. I don't agree in this case. The feedback may mean adjusting, doesn't mean the value of what you got. What you have, the flavor of what you have is mind-blowing. The world is a freaking dry sponge and needs what you're selling. It needs what I'm selling. How do I know that? Because every time I have an intimate conversation with someone, they leave transformed. They leave filled. And that's true about yourself.
It's a really good point. That's a really good point. And see, that's the encouragement that I'm talking about. It's like, it's so key and it's so important for everybody. Every single person, no matter where you are on the pay scale, the organizational chart, encouragement is often the answer to get people from where they are to where they need to be, or where they could be, or where they should be. So that's a very good point. That's a very good point. It may mean you have to adapt and change course, but never lose sight of your vision and the purpose. Like, you found your purpose, and I think I'm home here. I've found my purpose, and that's to help people become the best versions of themselves.
Right. So it doesn't matter. So the transition to entrepreneurship, on one hand, there's all those funny memes of the squiggly lines of the entrepreneurship, the ups and downs. I'm the greatest thing in the world. I'm the worst shit in the world, and back and forth and up and down. Right. And that's the accepted and comforting description of being an entrepreneur. It makes you feel like you're not alone because you're on the ground, on the floor 1 minute, and you're up on a stage the next. But the truth is, for me, that focus on the passion, and I don't mean the passion in a new age sense. I mean, when you have something in you you're committed to, that you want to birth, whether it's a widget, whether it's a company, whether it's coaching, whether it's art, when you have that thing within you, to honor that, and especially you're 40 years old. Right? There comes a time, I'd love it if 20-year-olds would do that. And on some level, they are doing that. But most of us are still put in the machinery. And then we come out the other end, and life starts telling us that we have something to do, give, create, build, right? And we don't listen to that. We start second guessing ourselves. And that's where the pain and the confusion comes in.
It's a good point.
And for me, and in this podcast, and in our conversation, and in every conversation, I want people to hear that voice that's inside. And I don't care if you have to wait tables while you're doing it. I don't care if you have to do your corporate job while you're doing it. But, what's her name? Harry Potter. Forgot her name. Oh my God.
Rowling.
I'm sorry?
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, J.K. Rowling. She had a baby carriage in a pub writing a book, right? That's not just romantic. That's all of us, so that we don't die at 40, buried at 70. Midlife for me is always asking us, what can we accomplish? What can we do? Now, what you said was, surround yourself with people who see your vision for you as clearly, or maybe even more clearly than you do. So I have people around me who say, I'm playing small. I have 25,000 followers. I have best-selling books, all that stuff, and I'm still playing small. And my ego is like, well, but I'm 57 years old. This is about as far, and no more. Like this is cool, and I'm called for it. Same thing with you, right? So this, for us in this conversation, I want the people listening who are listening to two guys who look really good on LinkedIn and look good, like nobody looks like you on a stage. I've watched you speak, and it's just awe-inspiring to watch what you can do with a crowd. So it's really nice to be honest about what goes on inside of us in the struggle. But also, I really want to acknowledge there's a rocket ship there.
Yeah, it's passion and purpose. That's what I've realized over the course of really the last, couple of years.
So give me the vision. Give me the wildest vision you have for what you can accomplish and the impact you can make on the world.
Me personally?
Yes, you.
Wildest vision for me is I've got 5 to 20 books that are out on the market. They're published by a real publisher, and I'm invited to speak and do the things exactly what you just said that I believe I'm either called to do, or that after 20 years trying to figure it out, those are the things I do best, is inspire and encourage people through either written word or the spoken word.
And so, when someone reads your book, and when someone reads one of those 20 books, and when somebody comes away from you on stage, what do you want them to walk away with?
I want them to feel inspired that they can do some of what you just said. You know what? I do have that burning inside me, and I do have that potential, and I do have the passion for this thing, and I can do it, and I will do it as long as I put in the work. And I want them to feel encouraged. I want them to feel uplifted, and I want them to find their own purpose, and I want them to feel connected to the purpose of their organization. And when it comes to leadership, I want the 34-year-old leader, and I'm married to one of them. My wife just turned 34. And she's getting ready to go into this new role. She got a little promotion, and she's nervous. And so I get to practice in my home with my wife, and that's a dicey road to go down, but it comes down, that's this real. when I find writer's block or speaker's block, I just go, let me just zone out, and let me write down this workshop. Let me write this chapter. Let me write this blog post. Let me create this keynote as if I were talking to my wife, who I love.
So you've got 20 books waiting. You've got 20 books waiting to be written in you. They're just like seven volumes of Harry Potter just waiting to come out of you, right? Just waiting to be born, because it's not you that's writing them. It's you that's a vessel, right? There are thousands and thousands of people waiting to hear you speak and help them get to where they want to go. What's going to stop you from doing that?
Me.
Tell me about that.
It's the doubt, and it's the fear. And you can break all these things down. You can go granular.
Don't break them down. Just keep saying them.
Doubt, fear, whether it's fear of, am I good enough, or fear, will the market support it? It's really those two things.
And the question is that going to stop you?
It might slow me down, but it's not going to stop me.
Cool. Right. So this is the gift that you and I can give from the stage and in our books is, yes, you and I are going to feel the headwinds of being human.
That's right.
But we're so committed to our vision and the service that we want to provide to the men and women who we can touch, we'll go through our own fears. We'll go through our own doubts. We'll go through all man-made crap to get to do that. And then we can speak with authority when we speak to the 34-year-old or the 40-year-old or anybody, say, no, I know what those headwinds are, and you got this.
That's right. And in a lot of ways, especially for this, that's why I like the title of your podcast. Ever since I heard about what you're getting ready to do and what you've been doing, and I've listened to several of your episodes, it's almost like now. Like you have this choice when you get to be 40 or whatever midlife is right now. Is that what you would classify as midlife?
It does. Right. Whenever the choice presents itself. There's
this choice where it's like, to your point, you're either done or you're just getting started. And so you can get yourself in a world of hurt. And I think everybody goes through it. Even Lewis Howes, he's crushed it, but he'll tell you, like he says to his podcast listeners, he was on the couch at his sister's place for 6 months, depressed and didn't know what to do. So we all come to this moment where you're 40 and you're buried and you wake up 7. How do you say it?
It's dead at 40, buried at 70.
Yeah. Or you realize, hold on, time out. I have at least as long as I have been going, I have at least that long going that way. And so it's like, in many ways, we are only getting started. And it just comes down to A, having a vision, and B, is never losing sight of the passion and purpose that drives you to move forward. But it takes other people. And in many ways, and that may be why I'm so passionate about leadership. It takes somebody like you saying what you just said to me. Like even right now, it's a little bit after 10 a.m. West Coast time. I'm going to, like to your point, I'm going to get off this call right now and I'm going to dive right in to my list of things that I have to do today with a little more pep in my step. But it takes that community. It takes that encouragement. It takes that inspiration from somebody else. Whether you're getting it from God or your faith, whatever that is for you, or your community. But I just feel like there's no more impactful way to get that than from your own leader. And I just want to help leaders be able to pour themselves into their people in that way to make them want to be the best they can be and to help their organizations be the best that they can be as well.
Cool. When is the book going to be written?
We are coming down the stretch. I'm working with an editor. So we're coming down the stretch now of the last couple chapters. I'm working on the workshops that will accompany the book concurrently here while also doing my day job. So in many ways, I'm still side hustling, but we are targeting early 2020. So vision-wise, perfect world, you're going to be able to get this book by June of 2020, somehow, some way, through some medium, whether it's Amazon and it's self-published, or if a publisher takes an interest and would like to publish it.
Well, we have 25,000 listeners, I'm told by my producer on this podcast. And by then it should be quite a bit more. So we're going to help launch that book because your first book was really fascinating. I think you do have 20 books in you, and I have a feeling all 20 books. If you want to have a kind of a hero in that kind of thing, Steve Chandler. If you've ever heard of him, Steve Chandler wrote Wealth Warrior, Time Warrior. He's written about 20, 25 books. They're all the same book. And I've read them all and never been bored because he grows as he writes the books in the same absolute central message that you are the creator of your life over and over and over, right? And it's just brilliant. So your central message is you.
Absolutely. I'll look him up.
And I'm just so tickled that you came on my podcast. You, me, and Brady are going to do an episode in about a month or so.
Okay.
So we're gonna have a conversation about what it's like to be, talented, skillful, and really at the top of our game, and human, and feel the headwinds. Because we're always, if we're creating something new, we're always over our skis just a little bit. We're always ahead of our confidence level. We're always bringing forth new product, new art, new something in the world that we're just not sure of. And how do you stay at that edge? So I'd love to have that conversation with you and Brady.
Oh yeah, that'll be a good one. And Brady and I have followed, you probably have too. We followed Seth Godin for years. And there's one thing that Seth always says, and he used to say it back in the day, and Brady and I have lived by this, is the moment you start to feel scared, that's the moment you're about to do something really cool. It's I always remember that when I start freaking out. Oh wait, I'm getting way out here on this ledge. When you start to get uncomfortable, I remember Seth Godin's thing. Now you're about to do something pretty cool. So just keep going.
Every day of my life. You can't see it in the video, but Seth Godin is sitting above my head, reminding me every day.
Fight the lizard brain.
absolute sage in the industry. So, Taylor, thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure.
We'll put the links to your books, to your website, and be able to people to follow you when the other book comes out. Lead with Hospitality. I appreciate you and who you are and what you do.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it.
To everybody else, thank you so much for spending your precious time and attention with us. I love you. Have a great rest of the day.